Good evening, viewers. Welcome to yet another Tea Time Talks. Today, I'm not conducting it at my usual place. As you can see, I'm sitting on a yoga mat. So, this is a Tea Time Talks with a difference. As we see all around us, the things we took for granted, such as oxygen, is today's case. We are buying oxygen. And the terms like lung capacity, oxygenation of blood, which we were a bit unaware about it. Everybody is talking about it today. So I thought, let me do something which is relevant to people today, everybody who's trying to live a healthier lifestyle and survive through this crisis would benefit a lot from this session. So today my guest is Maushmi Seri. She's a yoga mentor and a wellness coach. I have personally learned whatever little yoga I know from Maushmi, and it has benefited me a lot. Maushmi has over 5,000 hours of yoga coaching experience, and I welcome you, Maushmi, to our show.
Thank you, Shivani, for having me over and
Yeah.
inviting me over to your talk show.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. In fact, last year when we were in the lockdown, we couldn't have our regular, classes which we used to have with Maushmi. But whatever I knew about pranayama, Mashmi, I used to do that at home, and I think it helped me feel much better and healthier throughout the chaotic year that we had last year and this year also. And I believe you are doing some online sessions also now. So thank you for coming, and let me just come straight to the point that we're going to be discussing pranayama today, which is a part of yoga. So could you explain what exactly is pranayama?
Yeah. So, if we look into the term pranayam, if we break it up, pranayam is pran plus ayam. Control over the pran, the life force, is called as pranayam. So, when we have a control over our life force, that is known as pranayam.
Okay, and how can pranayama help us in the current crisis? You could tell us both as a preventive measure and also somebody who's already had COVID and has healed from it. How can it help in the post COVID healing?
So, first of all, as we all know that the coronavirus, the SARS virus, which they call it, has always been there. You know, these cough and cold viruses, all the different types of cough, cold, flu, they are always caused by these viruses. It's just that this particular variant proved to be so dangerous, and all these viruses, they mostly attack the lungs. So they damage the lungs, they decrease the lung capacity. You must have heard of terms like lung fibrosis and the lungs dying off. So pranayam from the very beginning can actually help in keeping your lungs healthy and increase the lung capacity, and also in the post-COVID recovery phase when the lung is already damaged slowly, and if over a continuous period the pranayam can be done regularly, I think it can again restore your lung health.
Okay. So let me also put a disclaimer here that we are not giving any cure for COVID or corona here. It is just trying to build our immunity and living a healthier life and equipping our lungs in advance so that even if we get infected, we are able to come out of it in a more efficient manner or capable manner.
Yes, I
Okay,
think
now.
out here I would like to point out one day one of my students actually said that इतना योगा किया फिर भी मुझे corona हो गया. So what is the point of doing all this? But I would like to suggest that immunity is not some death
Any.
ill at all. We cannot fall ill at all. It's not that. Immunity is how fast you recover from an illness. How short is your downtime? That is what I pointed out to that student who actually recovered from COVID in 3 days. He just
Wow.
had to take leave from office for 3 days, which is a big deal. If you are
Yes.
not going to a hospital, if you are recovering at home, if you are able to do your normal activities and just probably unwell for 2 to 3 days, you are having a very strong immune system for which you would have worked every single day and not just taken vitamin C
Just yeah.
or just done ad hoc pranayam for 2 3 days. So it's like a continuous practice which has to be a daily practice.
Certainly. So everything, every fitness mission should be a lifestyle change, not just like a seasonal thing or when there is infection
It's
and things like
definitely not a cure.
that.
It is a
Yes.
prevention.
Now, what are the different types of pranayam? And can we also do like some people who may not know yoga? And can they also start doing pranayam at least, even if they are not equipped to do yoga?
Yes, everyone can do pranayam, right from 3-year-old child to a 99-year-old can do pranayam. And there are different sorts of pranayam. There is intense pranayam, there is deep breathing pranayam. So once you let me demo, I can do the demonstration of the different types of pranayam. At least I think I would like to show 5 to 6 different types which can be done by everyone, should be done by everyone. Everyone should spend around 15 minutes. We can always take out from our busy schedule in the morning or in the evening and do it.
Okay. And what are the precautions to be taken while doing pranayam? Since we are not doing it directly with the coach, we are doing online or maybe
Yes,
on our own.
precautions also differ from pranayam to pranayam. So I think I'll touch upon that when I
Do it,
explain each
demonstrate.
pranayam. Yes.
Okay. And what time of the day should they be done? Is it always in
Pranayam,
the morning?
yes, ideally pranayam should be done early morning. Once you get up and you are done with your morning rituals, you can do the pranayam and start your day. Again, in the evening also, after you are done with your work, you can do pranayam. Early morning is always the best.
Okay. Now, can they be done at a desk? Because many of us are sitting on the desk for long periods of time, and if you want to take a quick break, can we do some? Because after all, it is deep breathing.
Yeah, yeah, sure. Definitely can be done at the desk also, especially the deep breathing ones can be definitely done at the desk also.
Okay. So, without wasting further time, let me invite you to just demonstrate. Let's start with the pranayam practice today.
Yes.
If you could tell us one by one.
Sure, sure. So, I would like to take you through a few of the pranayams, and the most important thing is the sequence in which we do a pranayam. So, I am going sequence wise. So, those who are looking at this show would maybe like to note the sequence. You cannot just do any pranayam in any sequence. Sequence is very important. So, the first one is we have these nadis. These are called the nadis. The nostrils or the channels through which our pran flows is called the nadis. And
Okay.
first thing is you have to kind of clear the obstruction in the nadis. So many times we think that they are clean, they are open, but they are not. There are always some kind of obstruction in these nadis. So there are two pranayam which is very good for opening, for cleaning these channels. First is the Bhastrika.
So we can
Bhastrika,
sit in a cross-legged pose, or
yeah, you can sit in any comfortable posture. Posture I mean, you can even sit on a chair. Elderly
or
people,
a
those who have
Vajrasan. I prefer Vajrasan, so I think
yeah, those who
that.
are having any knee issues, if you cannot sit on the mat, you can sit on a chair also. You can sit against the wall with cushions, everything is fine as long as your spine is straight. The air passage should be open. You should not be in a hunched position like this, always straight. So first is the Bhastrika. Bhastrika is deep inhale, forceful exhale. As I said, pranayam is control over one's breath. So there are 4 phases of a breathing cycle. You have an inhale, you hold the breath inside, which is an inhold. You exhale out, which is the breathing out process. And after you have exhaled, again you can hold your empty stomach. That is the outhold. So a breathing cycle has an inhale, Inhold, exhale,
Exhale,
and an outhold.
outhold.
In Bhastrika, there is no inhold, there is no outhold. We are controlling our inhale and the exhale. So a deep inhale, forceful exhale. You close one nostril, take a deep breath in, and forceful exhalation.
So it is a right hand.
Yes.
Yeah, because the screen mirrors it, so it is a right hand. Let me.
Correct. So it is the right hand, the dominant hand should be used. Thumb for the right nostril, ring finger always for the left nostril. So I'm holding my right nostril, taking a deep breath in and forceful exhale. It's just like you blow your nose out. Yes, like that. So if you see that, you will realize that a lot of matter tends to come out. You can probably have a tissue in hand, a hanky hand, whatever. Let it come out. So the sinuses get drained through this pranayama. It actually activates the draining of all the sinuses. Again, after you have done 20, now this is very important. The precaution to be kept is you should not exceed a Bhastrika. It is an intense form of pranayama. You should not do like a 10-minute, 15-minute, no. You can do 20 to 30 one side and again 20 to 30 the other side. Like that. If you exceed, what happens is you are straining these, very fragile blood vessels of the nose and the nerves in the ear. Sometimes there is a popping. Some people may experience popping or blocking of the ear if you do it for a very long time. That is why 20 to 30 is fine. Don't exceed it. Second, those who have medical conditions like hypertension, heart issues, or probably recent surgeries, any surgery of the brain, of the nose, anything, should avoid it. Or if you have, got the surgery done long back, then you can do it slowly. So slowly would be like this. I'm not putting so much force. It's not a this, it is a this. Slowly.
Okay, so Bhastrika in a slower and a calmer manner.
Yes.
So this can be done by pregnant women and anybody.
It can be done by pregnant women also. In fact, Bhastrika is very safe. It looks like a Kapalbhati. The next pranayam which I'm going to explain is Kapalbhati. That should not be done by pregnant women. But Bhastrika can be done by everyone. Only those who are under these medical conditions, as I said, they should do it very slowly.
Okay.
I'm sure everyone blows their nose when it is blocked. We do blow it. It's only that when we are fine, then also we should do it so that even if there is light obstruction also, which we don't realize, that gets cleared.
Okay.
Coming to the next,
the next one, I was just asking.
So the next one is your Kapalbhati. Kapalbhati, again, it means, what is the meaning of Kapalbhati? It's a Kriya. It's actually very, very powerful. It is a Kriya which is a cleansing activity. Kapalbhati means forehead shining. So it's actually believed that if you do Kapalbhati on a daily basis, you have such glowing skin and strong immune system that you have that glow, that shine on your face. That's why it's called the Kapalbhati. Now, Kapalbhati is a forceful exhalation with a passive inhale. What does that mean? You are not putting any effort on the inhale. You're just going to put an effort on the exhale with the simultaneous pulling in of the stomach. So it's like this. Every time I'm exhaling, I'm pulling my stomach in. So maybe those who are starting out can keep a palm on their belly, and each time you exhale, You just pull the stomach in. Don't focus on your inhale, it is happening on its own. Yes. And the shoulder should not be moving up and down. If your shoulder is moving, that means the coordination is not there. Probably your stomach and the exhale is not happening at the same time. So some people they do a Kapalbhati like this, it should not happen. Kapalbhati, only the stomach is the focus. That's your Kapalbhati. How does it benefit? It benefits the spleen. The spleen, which is present, it is very, very important for the immune system. The Kapalbhati activates the spleen, and that is why it's very beneficial to activate the immune system of the body. However, who all should not be doing Kapalbhati? Pregnant women should definitely not do Kapalbhati. Women during their periods should avoid Kapalbhati. Those who have chronic ulceritis or any recent surgeries of the stomach or chronic acidic conditions, acidity, they should do very carefully, very slowly, even if you're doing very slowly. Either avoid or do it slowly. So Kapalbhati can be actually done in three different speed. We call the speed or the pace of Kapalbhati. If you have normal health, average normal healthy person, you should do one stroke per second. So it's like I'm doing one stroke per second. If I have any kind of medical condition, hypertension, heart issues, chronic acidity, ulceritis, anything like that, one stroke in 2 seconds, much slower. And the third speed, which is often shown in YouTube, I think, videos, and people try to, kind of do it, but they should know when to do it. It is called the breath of fire. Breath
Yes.
of fire is a fast Kapalbhati. It is one stroke, sorry, in 1 second you do two strokes. I'll demonstrate to you. It actually goes very fast. And it is supposed to be done by those who have a very low metabolic fire. The low fire, the low pitta, and tend to gain weight, hypothyroidism, typically, where you tend to gain that middle fat. They should do the breath of fire, provided they are not hypertensive, not diabetic, not having any heart conditions. So the breath of fire is like this. That is the fast variety which you should always do with caution. Only
So I
if you
remember you used to make us do even in the cat and
Yes,
cow position.
yes.
Correct.
I'm coming to that also. In case anyone, I'm happy, Shivani, you remember all these.
No, I remember. Pranayama
Yes.
is something I remember.
One of my very good students. Okay. So, Kapalbhati, while doing Kapalbhati, a lot of people tend to experience slight back pain because Kapalbhati has a lot to do with these ab muscles. You're actually giving that stroke. So, those who have very weak uh, core muscles or they have any kind of back issues, they can do Kapalbhati, but they should do it in the table format. So, if you want to do it in the table format, the same thing, you are in your table format but in the table you should not arch for that. You should not get into the arch. You should have a neutral back and then so
It
that
actually becomes easier to do that way.
Yeah, that way you will not experience the back pain, which many
I keep on changing my pose because I can't sit in one pose for long. So is that also okay? I keep on
not okay
switching.
for a yoga student. Your legs should be strong enough to take you through the posture, but it's fine.
Okay. Okay.
So
Next.
that's your all about Kapalbhati. How much to do Kapalbhati again? Not to exceed 1 to 2 minutes max. You can go for 2 to 3 minutes with breaks. Don't do too long durations of Kapalbhati. So both the Bhastrika and the Kapalbhati, they are intense forms of breathing. Should not be done for a very long time. Just little duration every day according to your medical condition, slowly or fast is fine, should be done.
Great. So moving on to the next, what are we doing?
The next one is the most popular one. Actually, I think everyone knows about it and everyone should practice it, can practice it. It can be done by all age groups, by all medical conditions. In fact, it can be done even on a hospital bed. It can be done lying down, sitting, anytime, and it's called the Anulom Vilom or the Nadi Shodhan. It's the same thing. It's the deep breathing technique. So first of all, for that, your spine should be straight. Your non-dominant hand, mine is left, should be in the chin mudra. The other hand, you first close the right nostril with your thumb and you breathe out. Then you breathe in through the same nostril. You close the left with the ring finger and hold the inhaled breath inside for 2 seconds. Then you exhale slowly through the right. Once you have exhaled completely, you will hold the empty stomach again for 2 seconds. And then you inhale back through the same nostril. Again, hold the breath inside 2 seconds. Close the right with the thumb. Breathe out through the left. So if I have to do it continuously, it will be like this. Let's do 2-3 rounds, Shiva, for everyone to see.
Sure.
Wow, even 2 rounds of this can actually bring so much calmness to the mind, to the body. So just imagine if you do it for a longer duration. Two things.
Washmi, one thing you might like to emphasize here is how we need to, suck in our stomach and like with inhalation and exhalation.
Correct. I'm coming to that. So first thing is the exhale time should be double your inhale time. So a lot of people I have observed in parks and all, they do it very mechanically. With their eyes open. Actually, breathing is the first step towards meditation. A lot of people ask me how to meditate. This is how you meditate. You close your eyes, you concentrate on your breath. So you actually count in your mind how long you are inhaling. So if I'm inhaling, so suppose I have inhaled for 5 seconds, I should be able to exhale for 10 seconds.
Wow. Okay.
And this exhalation will be, of course, possible. Prolonged exhalation will be possible only if you are in a calm state of mind. So both act as a chicken and egg thing. If you are stressed, you cannot do deep breathing. If you are doing deep breathing, you will not be stressed. You will definitely have to calm down. That is why they say that deep breathing is the first step towards calming yourself down. But you cannot do the deep breathing till your channels are clear. That is why I started with the Bhastrika and the Kapalabhati. Now, when you are doing the deep breathing, you have to breathe from the belly. That is also very important point in yoga. Our lungs, they are actually having three lobes, and with the normal city breathing, we just do clavicular or thoracic breathing. We're just breathing from here. Even if we do a little deeper,
it's very shallow.
even if we try to do a little deep, it's just the chest which expands. For the stomach to expand, you will have to put in a little more effort. So you can actually keep your palm on the belly and see whether the belly is moving out during your inhale. You know, it's just like a balloon. You have to put the effort to bring it out. It will not happen naturally. And again, during exhale, you have to put the effort to pull it in. Each time you inhale, you push it out, exhale, you push it in. That's how you will do the Narishwari. So I think I've covered almost all the important points. As I said, no precautions as such. Everyone can do it, everyone should do it. It can be done any time of the day, but not before or after meals immediately because obviously the belly movement cannot. It can be
So we
done
should
at your
give a
leisure.
1 hour gap, I guess, from any
Yes,
meal.
not even one. After heavy meals like lunch and dinner, you should eat 2 to 2.5 at least.
Okay.
Otherwise, you'll not be able to do the belly.
All right. Now, what next?
Moving to the next one. So the next one, I would like to touch upon the Sheetali and the Sheetkarni. Both are a little less used, a little less known. Um, why? Because of course, yoga teachers don't prefer also to teach it because you are doing it from the mouth. Yoga is all about breathing through the nose. Our nose has many filters, and you know the way it is built, it filters the air, and so it is much safer form of breathing rather than breathing through the nose. However, there through the mouth. However, there are two breathing techniques which use the mouth: the Sheetali and the Sheetkarni. They are very much related, also closely related, and they can be used as the name suggests. Sheetali, it's cooling down. So it can be cool, it can be used for those who have fever. When you are having fever, it is advisable to do Sheetali or Sheetkarni to kind of bring down the body temperature. So I'll tell you how to do it. In Sheetali as well as Sheetkarni, all the effort is on the inhale. The exhale is passive. So there is no effort in the exhale, it will happen on its own. We are always putting all the focus on the inhale. In the Sheetali, you keep your teeth clenched and the tongue is on the tip of the tongue touches the upper palate just behind your upper set of teeth. And then you suck the air in like this. So there is no effort in my exhale, but there's a lot of effort in my inhale. I clench the teeth.
Exhale is from nose.
Yeah, through the nose. Exhale is through the nose. Inhale, clench the teeth, put the tongue so that the air is passing through the tongue. That is giving you that chilling effect. So put the tongue on the tip of the tongue on the upper palate, just behind your upper set of teeth. Again, 10 to 15 times should be more than enough. And relax. Very good, Shivani. That was very good for a start.
So this I used to do this because you told me that it's good for acidity too.
Yes, for all the conditions where the pitta of the body, the fire of the body is high. So during the fever also, the fire gets very high. Then indigestion, acidity, all these places you can do Sheetal.
Sheetal.
Sheetkarni is almost similar, same benefits, same precautions to be kept in mind, almost the same. Exhale is passive. In the inhale, instead of clenching the teeth, you roll up your tongue.
I've never been able to master this, but let me try.
So you kind of roll your tongue into a scroll. A lot of people actually find it very uncomfortable. So they do the Sheetali. It's almost the same.
But yeah, I tend to learn.
And you tend to suck the air. Again, the air is passing through the tongue, which is creating all the necessary benefits inside your body. It provides immediate relief against thirst.
I mean, there's this cooling you feel right down
that menthol effect.
It's a great pranayam. And I was reading somewhere that, many people indulge in emotional eating or just eating impulsively. This also helps you calm down that
Yes.
बिना बात का खाना ना जो होता है आजकल. People are sitting at home.
Stress binging. A lot of people have told me that they do the stress binging. It actually avoids stress binging also.
So the next time you want to grab a pack of chips, just do this Sheetkari or Sheetali and it will help you not feel so hungry without, there is a time to eat. So we should not keep snacking all day. That's what I feel in this lockdown.
Very true, very true. And coming to the next one. The next one is actually one of my favorites. It is called the Udgit Pranayam. Udgit Pranayam is nothing but Om chanting. Again, I would like to put a disclaimer here that a lot of people associate Om chanting with the religious thing that only Hindus can chant and no one else can chant and all. But I would like to say that Om is a very universal sound. It has nothing to do, although Hindus use it a lot, but it has nothing to do with religion. When the Om chanting has a very huge health impact. Why? Because the frequency of the Om chanting matches with the frequency of our cells. All living cells, do you know that they are vibrating? They are not stagnant. Each and every cell of our body or every living being around is in a state of vibration. So the frequency of that vibration matches the frequency of the Om chant. And that is why it is so powerful. Usually we prescribe 108 Om chants and all for complete peace and calm and all. Even if you can't do 108, which would take a lot of time, a lot of patience, you can do at least 11 Om chants. Now the Om word is actually made up of three sounds: A, U, and M. And these are all pain relieving sounds. That is why they are so naturally occurring. You would know that when you cut your finger or when you hurt yourself, the first sound which comes is ah or foo. You know that no one tells you to do that ah or oo, but you do it. Just a natural reflex is ah, ooh. We do that.
Yeah.
So these are natural sounds. The M, when you are in fever and you're kind of writhing in pain, you're tossing and turning on your bed. Most of the times you're doing. No one tells you to do that, but it's your body which is doing unintentionally. So these are naturally occurring sounds. If we can replicate it, we can do it voluntarily. It obviously releases the pain, the exhaustion, which is created by the stress. So it kind of releases it. And that is why the Om chanting, the Udgit Pranayam is very, very relaxing. So I'll tell you how to go about it. You do first, you start with the A, U, and M, different sounds chanting, and then you do the Om chanting. You can do each of them probably 10 times. just as a daily practice. Unless you have the time, you can obviously go for a higher number. Again, there are no precautions, everyone can do it, all age groups, anytime. Mostly, of course, don't include the meal time, otherwise, it's very relaxing whenever you want to do it, especially those who are suffering from insomnia, anxiety, stress. Very important. It's absolute must to do this. So when you are doing the arm, you place your palm on this region. It actually gives vibrations in this region. Deep inhale, exhale through the nose, but chant from the mouth. Next, you place your palm on the chest center, and do the oo. Ooh. I could feel the vibrations.
Yes.
Yes, there are vibrations. And then the crown of the head, the talu, the crown, the sahasrara, with the chin mudra, both the palms up, kept on your lap. Mm. A lot of vibrations are created, a lot of positive vibes you create, especially if you can sit together, with your spouse, with your parents. Positive vibrations, they actually, again, um, they create a lot of positivity around
I
us.
remember, especially in your group classes, sometimes it used to be like a
Yes,
magical feel
those
when we all used to.
vibrations you could actually feel.
Yeah, I miss that. But yeah,
Okay,
what can do with family?
so I think, are we all time or do we have for one last Brahmani
I
breathing?
think, yeah, my favorite Brahmani. Let's do that.
So one last pranayam, that's Brahmani breathing. As the name suggests, Brahmani, the humming bee breath. So the mudra is very important in Brahmani breathing, Shank Mukhi mudra. You place your fingertips on different pulse points. These are pulse points, so you have to gently press on these points, and they help in the cooling down of the nervous system. Hum on the eardome. You gently press your ears closed after I am done with my instructions. Then the index on the eyebrow, middle finger on the eyelash or the tear gland, ring finger near the nostril, little finger near the lips. Gently press on all these points. Take a deep breath in. As you exhale through the nose, chant from the mouth, the humming sound. And nowadays, there's a lot of research actually showing that with all this humming, we kind of generate a lot of nitric oxide. This is the latest, which all these researchers have found that nitric oxide is germicidal in nature and all the research and everything. But our yoga gurus, they knew it so many years back. I think
That's amazing.
yes, I think
What other advantages are there of Brahmari?
Brahmani, the benefits are this usually it is cooling, it's very relaxing.
Calming.
Again, very important and a must for those who have insomnia, anxiety, stress, all this. And no such precautions because it's again very safe. It can be done by everyone. And yes, it can be done at any point of time. Again, nothing such special precaution. I think special precaution to be taken only for Kapalbhati and Bhastrika. Please be
Bhastrika.
careful with these two. Don't overdo it. Um, don't do it very fast in a very aggressive manner. That's
Okay. Great. I think that was really lovely information, and our viewers will be happy to do it and continue with this. Any last words for our guests?
I think, Shivani, when the whole world is actually right now looking at India, that ye kya ho gaya, kaise ho gaya, oh they should have done this, their activity, we should spread even the positive part that we Indians have a lot in our heritage which we can use to keep ourselves healthy and happy. The entire world is actually now following our breathing techniques, all these Wim Hof method and other different types of methods, box breathing done by the US Naval Force and everything. Somewhere I feel it has its origin in yoga. Okay, it is a take from the yogic breathing techniques. What the breathing techniques, the pranayama which our ancestors have already given us, if we don't use it, nothing can help us. So
Yeah.
it may be a
So we are
corona
so
today.
fortunate. We are
Yes, it
so
may be a
fortunate
corona
that
today. Tomorrow it might be something else. You will always have to be ready.
yeah. So I think every Indian should at least try doing yoga, and once you start, you get hooked on. And we must make full use of this ancient wealth of knowledge that our forefathers created.
Yes, definitely. And
Great.
thank you so much for giving me this opportunity to
Thank
give
you
so
so
many
much.